Hey everybody, and welcome back to Bakes by Vasko. I'm Michelle with 1L, and I'm glad you're here. Well, today we are making the ultimate mashup, a tuxedo cookie. What is a tuxedo cookie? It's a cookie that when you can't decide between a classic chocolate chip or a warm cocoa cookie. We're going to take both of those and look at the contrast, with one side being a rich cocoa cookie with white chips, and the other side being the traditional blonde cookie with dark chocolate chips. So if you're ready to do this with me, let's get to baking and learn how to make these. All right, the first thing you're going to want to do is mix your wet ingredients. Now these wet ingredients are the same in both sides of your cookie, so just mix them all together and then divide it. You're going to need 3/4 of a cup of butter flavored shortening. To that is 1 1/4 cups brown sugar packed, 2 tablespoons of milk that's at room temperature, and 1 large egg also at room temperature. Now you're going to mix these, and I'm using my hand mixer, until they're smooth and fluffy. All right, I'm going to scrape down my bowl and give it one more go round. All right, that is definitely the nice fluffy texture you want it to be. Now we're going to separate it into 2 separate portions, roughly 1 cup each. So I'll grab another bowl here. Oh, I forgot something. We need 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Sorry. That happens because I hide things. So they mix that in. Now, this is ready to separate into 2 bowls. Have a cup here. I'll just scoop it up and scrape down the side of the bowl. Now you have 2 separate doughs that you are going to add your dry ingredients to make your tuxedo cookies. All right, you now have your base dough separated. That is brown sugar and butter shortening with egg, vanilla, and milk. Now to make our light side cookie, we are going to take 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I'm using unbleached. 3/8 of a teaspoon of baking soda, which is just a scant half teaspoon, a half a teaspoon of salt, and then we're going to add to that a half a cup of dark chocolate chips. You just want to take and whisk those together real quick. Then you're going to add your dry ingredients to your half of your wet ingredients, and we're going to mix these together. And then to that, we're going to add a half a cup of dark chocolate chips. And we're just going to fold those in with a rubber spatula. Then you can scrape down the sides of your bowl, making sure that no flour mixture remains. And there you go. There's 1/2. Now, to our other half of dough, we're going to take 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 3/8 of a teaspoon of baking soda, which again is a scant half teaspoon of salt. And then we'll add to that, once we whisk it all together, we'll add that to our wet mixture and then mix it together. Careful not to take it out of the bowl too soon and do what I just did and get it everywhere. Scrape down the sides of your bowl. And then to that, you're going to add 1/2 cup of white baking chips. Again, fold those in by hand, and that'll also ensure that you didn't miss any flour. Now, this dough, so that it can be handled, needs to chill for 10 to 15 minutes. So we're going to pop this in the fridge, and then we'll get to the next part. Well, I went ahead and let the dough chill for about 20 minutes to make sure it was workable. Your chocolate dough is going to chill quicker than your blonde dough because it's just a little different makeup there in the consistency of the cocoa powder, but they both have the same amount of baking soda, so they will rise the same. However, we're going to do a few test cookies before we do the whole batch to make sure that my method of putting these together is going to work. Now, at Christmas time, if you followed along, I did a spumoni cookie that was 3 different flavors, and you take your ball of dough and you just pinch them together until you have a cookie. We're going to do that today, only we're going to make it a little neater, because once we have that ball of dough, we're going to cut it in half and put the 2 halves together to make our tuxedo cookies. So are you ready to do this with me? First off, take a little bit of your blonde dough and roll it into a ball about 1 inch. And this is where you don't be afraid to get your hands messy. And you take the same amount of chocolate dough and roll it together, make a nice little ball. And then you can either use a pastry cutter or a pizza cutter. You want a straight blade. You don't want serrated, so I would avoid knives. And then we're just going to cut these in half, as I said. And then we're going to take them, oops, a little sticky, and push them together. And then round them out just a bit. Push them down, and there you go. You have one tuxedo cookie, and we're going to put that on our parchment lined paper. You should preheat your oven to 375 degrees, and we're going to use the center rack. And just keep repeating until you get all the dough that you can fit onto your tray used. Like I said, we're going to start with 4 cookies and see how that does, and then we'll get to all of them. All right, my 4 test cookies are ready for our oven. We're going to stick those in there for 8 to 10 minutes so we can have a nice chewy cookie. I'll put these in there. I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, our test batch is out of the oven, and they didn't turn out quite the way that I wanted them to, but that's why they were the test batch. So we're going to go ahead and get the chilled dough out of the fridge, and we're going to make another small batch and give that a try. All right, everybody, I think I figured out what we need to do. We need to dial back the oven temperature to 350 degrees, and then we're going to bake them for 8 minutes on the center rack. So again, we're going to roll our dough into 1-inch balls, cut them in half, lightly smash them together, put them on the baking sheet about 1 inch, 2 inches apart so they have room to spread, and we'll get to these luscious cocoa with white chips and blonde with dark chocolate chip tuxedo cookies. Make sure your hands are clean before you start this. And you'll need to wipe them off several times in between, obviously. While you're watching me do this, don't forget to hit that like button, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and tell me if you try them. And if you haven't already, become a subscriber. That way you don't miss out on any of the fun things that we get up to here at Bakes by Vasko. All right, everybody, we have our first tray of tuxedo cookies ready to go in the oven. I wanted to give you a close-up shot of them on the tray here. You can see the contrast then. They will change a little bit when they come out, obviously, but we're gonna put these in our 350-degree oven for 8 minutes. All right, everybody, at 8 minutes, the centers were a little juicy still, so I went a full 10 minutes. Now we're gonna pull them out of the oven, let them cool on their cookie sheet for a minute before transferring them to aluminum foil. Definitely what I needed to do is turn down the heat. Now you can actually see the separate colors. All right, everybody, once again, I'm Michelle with 1L, and this is Bakes by Vasko. Thank you for hanging out with me as we made these delicious cocoa with white chip and blonde with dark chocolate chip, what we're calling tuxedo cookies. Now, the best part of any bake is the eating. Right into a gooey piece of chocolatey chip and that yummy cookie. Definitely give these a try. They may not be new to you, but they're new to me, and I hope you like them. I'll see you next time.